Good evening. By sheer chance, tonight's programme is a kind of celebration, or not, depending on how the movies turned out, of Brits abroad. All the films we're looking at have strong British connections, and yet only one was made here. A sign of the times indeed. Anyway, from Paris and Hungary, David Putnam presents a truly international lineup in Meeting Venus. Alan Parker's latest, The Commitments, was made in Dublin. Adrian Lyne directed Jacob's Ladder in America, and so it goes. We'll begin, though, with Meeting Venus, a musical romantic comedy that is also a mischievous satire on the European community. The Opera Europa, a grand outfit strangled by its own red tape, is mounting an international production of Wagner's Tannhäuser. The conductor, Niels Ehrenstroop, flies in from Budapest to discover that this is Tower of Babel time, a setup in which a man can be misunderstood in 6 languages at once. The French hate the Germans, the East Europeans are riven by petty national jealousies, trade unionism is rampant, and all it lacks is an English voice from the back shouting up yours Delors. At which point enter the diva, Glenn Close, singing up a storm.
Maria. Stefano. Bonjour. Bonjour. Enchanté.
Carl, may I introduce to you Maestro Santu?
Mm-hmm. Ça va. I ask you to forgive me for arriving so late. I've been ill. But I want to I want to prove to you, here and now, that I've been preparing for this role, even on my sick bed. Whole aria.
My word, you think you're listening to Kiri Te Kanawa. Then you look at the end credits and realise you were listening to Kiri Te Kanawa. However, the advent of the diva also introduces the love story, which roughly parallels the opera in much the same way as the production parallels the European community. As Venus holds Tannhäuser in thrall, so, after initially not reckoning him at all, does Close hold Ehrenstroop. Starting with the most ominous words an unattached woman can ever utter to a married man, "I'm not going to ruin your life," she whips him into bed and proceeds to come as near as damn it to ruining his life. But of course, the opera isn't over till the fat ladies sing, so along with the emotional Sturm und Drang goes the continuing chaos around Tannhäuser production.
Dear Mr. Piccadilly, conditions in the Opera Europa make creative work quite impossible. People here pick up the salaries but seem unwilling to do anything in return. Except me, of course, since I have not yet been paid anything. Delete the first sentence, please. I refuse to offer the public some under-real pantomime. Unless you agree to create conditions for normal work within the next 2 days, I intend to break my contract under Clause 9 and leave the country immediately. Sincerely, you will sign Alexita.
Should I be valid?
Me.
S-Z-A.
Z-O.
Now, all this was directed by the Hungarian István Szabó and was inspired by his own experiences when producing Tannhäuser in Paris a few years ago. And it's very good in parts. The music naturally is great, and the background stuff, the backbiting, the envy, the various actual and putative love affairs, the appalling difficulty of persuading all these people to work for a common cause is very nicely handled. It's the main story that doesn't work so well. because while Closer and Aerostroop are interesting separately, they're rather dull together. It's not the actors' fault, they're both fine. It's the script by Sabo and Michael Hurst that lets them down. But look on the bright side, there's still a lot to enjoy, and if you're wondering what Europe is going to be like next year, I have a nasty feeling that Meeting Venus has just about got it right. But now, by overwhelming popular request, I have to announce the return of our competition. It's an absolute doddle, and it's also a phone-in. In a minute, I'll give you the number to call. So I don't want any cards or letters. Please, for pity's sake, don't send us any cards or letters. Right, now I'm going to show a film clip from one film and stills from 3 others. And all you have to tell me is which of them David Putnam was not involved in. Okay, which of those films did not involve David Putnam? The number to phone is 0898 555 448. The first prize is the complete collection of Warner's new screen classics, which include Blazing Saddles, Bonnie and Clyde, and Rebel Without a Cause, plus a copy of The Mission. In other words, 13 videos. The 10 runners-up will each receive the soundtrack from Meeting Venus on CD, cassette or disc. So call now, and if you've got the answer right, your name will go into the hat for the grand draw. You want the phone number again? Of course you do. It's 0898 555 448. And for those of you who aren't dialing already, here's the list of the top 10 films in Britain. Number 10, Pump Up the Volume, Christian Slater as the college campus DJ Rebel. 9 is Soap Dish, frothy entertainment as Sally Field and company come clean about TV soaps. At 8, Dying Young, Julia Roberts nurses lovesick Campbell Scott in a medical melodrama. 7, Oscar, Sylvester Stallone turns his hand to crime comedy. And 6, New Jack City, New York's drug underworld revealed in a tough, tense thriller. 5 is Backdraft, firefighting brothers battle with flames and each other. At 4, Only the Lonely, Mummy's boy cop John Candy finds love in the funeral parlour. At 3, Regarding Henry, Harrison Ford as tough lawyer turned family man, all caring and sharing. 2, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves is still riding through the top 10 with his band of men. And at number 1, Terminator 2, non-stop action as tender Terminator Arnie blasts his way to the top. The one British connected movie of the week that was actually filmed in Britain is Under Suspicion, a good old-fashioned whodunit that marks the feature debut of writer-director Simon Moore. The setting is Brighton, for which improbably Portmeirion sometimes stands in with a sort of uneasy grin on its face in the 1950s. Liam Neeson is a disgraced ex-copper now earning a seedy crust as a private eye by putting his wife, Maggie O'Neill, into bed with his clients to provide them with false and quite illegal divorce evidence. But one night he bursts into the hotel bedroom, camera at the ready, to find wife and client messily slaughtered. Since the late client was a millionaire Italian artist, his death means there's a lot of cash up for grabs, and therefore a lot of people with a motive. The abandoned wife, Alfonso Emanuel, for one, the painter's mistress, Laura San Giacomo, for another, and the penniless Liam Neeson, who can't even afford a Mac, for a third.
Did you tell the police something to make them tear my car apart?
No.
No?
No.
You see, I did go to the hotel that night. Mr. Roscoe told me what Carla was going to do, and I wanted to try and stop him. I wasn't going to marry him. But I nearly fly into a rage. So I just sat in my car.
You sat in your car. You didn't go inside.
I should have told the police. But I was so frightened. I mean, it looks bad, doesn't it? I think his wife killed him.
She was 50 miles away.
Well, maybe she paid someone to do it. Go and talk to her.
Hey, listen. I'm doing my investigations, not yours.
I'll pay you.
To find my wife's killer. What kind of person do you think I am?
Someone who needs money.
Well, the accusing digit of suspicion points ever more unwaveringly at Neeson, who, with the aid of his terribly obliging old mate, Detective Inspector Kenneth Cranham, sets out to clear his name, a task in which he's somewhat hampered by finding himself frequently in bed with San Giacomo. Good performances, a neat twist at the end, and a fair bit of tongue-in-cheek humour, which does not, however, excuse a big climactic scene which is intended to make your palms damp with tension, but is much more likely to make your eyes moist with mirth. Nevertheless, a promising start by Simon Moore, and though there are a few holes in his plot, he does provide the observant viewer with a strong early clue. Besides, it's fun to see again the kind of thriller British studios used to make so competently in the 40s and 50s. But now to the first of our two, yes, count them, two location reports. That notoriously truculent Londoner Alan Parker, who to my knowledge has been threatening to make a film in Britain for years, hasn't quite managed it yet, but he's getting close. His latest, The Commitments, was filmed in Dublin and tells the story of a group of youngsters who decide to form an Irish soul band. And sure, don't the Irish have as much soul as anybody else?
Please put your working class hands together for the Saviours of Soul, the hardest working band in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, The Commitments.
It's just a story of a bunch of kids here in Dublin who are trying to put together a rock and roll band. The difference is that they're playing soul music.
That's what you got to measure up to, lads. So say it once, say it loud. I'm black and I'm proud.
What you won't find in this film are any stars. In fact, only two members of the Commitments band had ever acted before. In search of an authentic sound for his soul group, Parker held open auditions in Dublin and cast the film after seeing more than 3,000 local singers and musicians.
Andrew Strong, who plays Deco, didn't really come through the normal route. I think that when they were thinking about who I might like, they thought he didn't really fit into this sort of, in the book he's described as a rather vain George Michael, which Andrew certainly isn't. But he came in towards the end, actually. He was helping out with vocals that we were laying down. And then I walked in and I said, OK, would you sing for me? And out of this 16-year-old body came this extraordinary black voice.
Okay, clap. I'm gonna be wiping those weeping eyes.
But I've always had a rough voice, and like people always say he's about 23, 24, good thick voice, well broken, and I say I'm 16, and they say, wow, can't believe it,
And all the girls that came in were much gutsier than the boys, who were rather shy, funny enough. And in these three girls, I didn't want kind of wimpy bimbo type, backup singers. They had to be strong as the boys. In fact, these three girls are so gutsy, they come out like even stronger at the boys at times.
Baby, they don't know that I'd leave you if I could. I guess I'm alright, and I'm stuck like glue, 'cause I ain't never.
If you grow up in Dublin, there in a working class situation, the only way you're going to get out of their world is three things really. You're either going to be a professional boxer, a professional football player, or you get into music. And many kids get into music because just buying a guitar, learning a few chords is good because it makes you feel good about yourself, and it's the only chance that you might have, because one day you might be you too, or Sinead O'Connor. I wanted to do this film because I very much identify with the kids, I suppose. They come from the north side of Dublin, working class area, and I come from the north of London, very similar working class area. And I suppose deep down, the dreams and aspirations that I had when I was a kid are very close to theirs. But truthfully, it's about the dreams of any kid anyway. You could be in Philadelphia, Detroit. They all want to use music to get out of the world they're in. I've taken these kids, they hadn't acted before, many of them, and you from them, you extract as much as you can from them, and there's a freshness and honesty and truth, and it's very stimulating, really, as a director, and I love that. And as you watch them go from nothing, you rehearse with them, you make the film, and you see them grow as actors. I don't know that it could ever be more exciting than doing that, and I think it works, but, the audience will tell us.
Show me a woman that's got a good man. Show me a woman that's got a good man.
And The Commitments opens here on October the 4th. In the meantime, we have Jacob's Ladder, directed by Adrian Lyne and written by Bruce Joel Rubin, who also wrote Ghost. Cling on to that latter piece of information, because it's the only clue I'm going to give you as to what it's all about. Well, come on, it's the only clue I've got as to what it's all about. Tim Robbins is a Vietnam vet and a PhD, currently working at some menial task in the New York Post Office. He's apparently been kicked out by his wife, Patricia Kalemba, and is now living with Elizabeth Pena. We also know that he can't tell left from right and goes to a chiropractor, Danny Aiello, who keeps wrenching him about and giving him wise and cryptic advice. And Robbins needs advice because he's haunted by nightmares about his time in the Mekong Delta, where very nasty things happened and his platoon behaved most oddly. What's more, he has recurring dreams about his dead son, the ubiquitous and egregious Macaulay Culkin of Home Alone, whom irrationally I begin to dislike more every time I see him. Still, that's my problem. Our problem, which is to say yours and mine, is deciding what exactly we're to make of this movie. There are flashbacks to the Mekong Delta, flashbacks to Robin's previous life with wife and sons, frightening monster-like apparitions crop up, and it turns out other Vietnam vets see them too. And suddenly, what's more, there's conspiracy going on. People die mysteriously. The US Army denies that Robbins ever went to Vietnam, and somebody, the CIA probably, is trying to kill him.
You've seen them? I've seen them too. Everywhere like a plague.
Oh, God, I thought I was the only one.
Yeah, me too. I thought I was going out of my mind.
I know. Look, I carry these around everywhere with me. But they don't help. Nothing helps. What happened that night? What was they doing?
Lucky day.
So, questions abound. Did the American Army use hallucinogens on its troops in Vietnam to make them fight better? Did it work? When is all this taking place? Who exactly is the Tim Robbins character? What time is it? And can I go home, please? Actually, all the questions are valid, and the answer to one of them is horrific. The style of the film is impressive, and much of the imagery is vivid and disturbing, like a glossy commercial for a bad trip. But the substance doesn't really make any kind of sense at all, and the denouement is both disappointing and at first sight baffling. I think I've got it worked out now, but it took a while, and frankly I resent the time I spent on it. So we'll leave that and move on to our second location report. Rick Mayall has lately been in America to play his first starring role in a feature film in Drop Dead Fred. He plays a character who exists only in the imagination of Phoebe Cates, who is, not surprisingly, going through an identity crisis. The film is advertised as a dark, bittersweet comedy about psychological liberation, which I suppose is a promising start. I mean, it's hard even to say psychological liberation without giggling. Anyway, Tom Brooke visited the location in Minnesota.
Marking.
And action.
This Minnesota soundstage represents an inner world, a peek inside the troubled mind of the leading character in Drop Dead Fred, a young American woman called Elizabeth, played by Phoebe Cates.
This is inside Phoebe Cates' head. And if you look around, you can see she must have a problem. We should be taking her to the Betty Ford clinic pretty soon.
Rick Mayall is Drop-Dead Fred, Elizabeth's imaginary friend from childhood, who reappears at a critical moment in her adult life to guide her to sanity. Because Fred is mischievous, imaginary, and can only be seen by Elizabeth or other imaginary friends, the comic possibilities are endless.
Charlie! Sharp!
They're bandits! No, bandits! Fred's really larger than life, you see. I don't think I'm a kind of Meryl Streep type actor, you know, who can make people weep just by raising an eyebrow that much, you know. Me, I write about it. But that's why it's good for me. That's why I seized on the ideas, because Fred's imaginary, so he can just be anything, and he can be over the top and loud and stupid and childish. And that means that I can be me and hopefully not make a mistake.
Well, what does that taste like?
American film critics weren't too impressed with Rick Mayall's performance, but Phoebe Cates thought that he demonstrated considerable talent.
It's not just what he does really well, which I've seen from some of his shows and stuff, which is that manic, high-energy stuff. There's a lot of that, but there's also, he's really been very brave about finding the other level.
Yes, I do.
As you can tell, Drop-Dead Fred is far more than just a straightforward comedy film. It moves into the realm of fantasy and explores some quite deep issues, such as the nature of parent-child relations.
This is about a young woman who has been unable to come to terms with her relationship with her mother and has projected fantasies into and her aggression into this character of this imaginary friend.
Can we talk about when I was little? We haven't got time for that. We have to get you back with Charles, and I'm the one to do it now. Let's go.
Essentially, Fred operates as Elizabeth's alter ego, encouraging her to break away from her hostile mother and womanizing husband to forge her own identity.
He's her masculine side, I think. The aggressive side of her, the side that she's scared of, the side that she leaves up to her mother and to her husband. I think he represents what she would really like to be doing.
If you do the point of view here, we can have the car immediately here.
The film's Dutch director thinks the story of personal liberation that unfolds in Drop-Dead Fred gives the film contemporary relevance.
Thematically, it's like a young person, a young woman who liberates herself and stands up for herself, instead of still being restricted in the way that society has done for such a long time.
All the characters in the film are living lives based on received ideas, how to live, and that's why they're unhappy. That's why they're lonely as well, because they don't know themselves. They don't know who they are. They're just living, like I think a lot of us do. You know, think, oh, that's the thing to do. You know, I'll live my life like that. Rather than actually looking at it's quite an American idea though, isn't it? Looking in on yourself to find out who you are and then deciding how to live after that process.
The deeper psychological threads of Drop-Dead Fred remain in the subtext. On the surface, the film can be enjoyed as slapstick, in which a manic Rick Mayall steals the limelight, unless, of course, he's being upstaged by other imaginary friends.
Drop-Dead Fred opens here on October the 11th, but now here's the latest movie news. The British connection with the rage in Harlem is largely financial. Stephen Woolley produced the film and his company, Palace Pictures, partly underwrote the budget. It's based on a Chester Himes thriller, which has been turned on its head so that the cops now play secondary roles and the bad guys take centre stage. It's 1956 and a fat, naive young mortuary assistant, Forrest Whitaker, is sucked into a plot involving stolen gold that's been smuggled into Harlem from Mississippi. More pertinently, he's sucked into the seductive embraces of the gorgeous, duplicitous Robin Givens, who could make the stiffs in Whitaker's mortuary sit up and take vibrant interest.
Who's that?
Oh, that's Jesus.
Now, honey, I know who Jesus is. The other one.
Oh, that's my mom. She's dead now.
Sorry to hear that, Jackson. I'm so tired. I feel like I walked all the way from Mississippi.
Oh, I'm sorry. Would you like me to rub your feet for you? I could do that for you.
Sure, honey, that'd be fine.
Gotta take these off. I've seen a lot of feet before. I don't think I've seen one so small.
Mighty sweet of you, Jackson. So where's it you seen all them feet, huh?
And dead people?
Jackson.
Oh, you know, being an undertaker and everything. It's not that I work with the deceased or anything like that personally. It's just the job. You just get accustomed to the sight of bodies.
Now, Givens is after the gold and uses Whitaker to help her get it, but Whitaker's alienated half-brother, Gregory Hines, a small-time con artist, wants it too, and so do other much rougher people, such as Harlem's criminal Mr. Big, Danny Glover, and an assortment of sadistic thugs and scumbags. A Rage in Harlem is almost a very good film. What I like about it is its pace, humour and general zest. The director, Bill Duke, handles these things well, but then spoils the general effect by over-egging the pudding with far too much gratuitous violence and monotonously four-lettered language. On the other hand, Forrest Whitaker is good as the mother's boy, who turns out to be far more resourceful than he thought he was, and Robin Givens, ex-wife of Mike Tyson, shows there's more to her than merely a bottom like jelly on springs. As the bad girl, who's not nearly as bad as she thinks she is, she turns in a most engaging and promising performance. But now, let's look ahead. Next week I'll be reviewing Let Him Have It, based on the Craig Bentley case, and The Object of Beauty, which stars John Malkovich and Andy McDowell. And I'll be talking to Billy Crystal about his forthcoming City Slickers. But for now, and until 10:20 next Tuesday night, here's one of the songs from The Commitments. Goodbye.
And both Glenn Close and Liam Neeson are due to appear with Wogan tomorrow night to discuss their new releases at 7.
New Wednesday night drama on BBC One.
I am, of course, referring to Special Constable Freddie Calder in particular. Now, he thinks he's Captain Marvel of the Flying Squad.
Right. Out.
hobby, Bobby.
New drama in the new season. The Special, starting tomorrow at 8 on BBC One.
Now on BBC One, tonight's film stars Timothy Dalton and Anthony Edwards in a touching comedy drama about two sick men determined to make the most of the time they have left. We present the first network television showing of Hawks.